What's up, brother? It's Tuesday.
What's up, brother? Special teams, special plays, special players.
Hell yeah. Dugouts, Dumbbells, and Dingers. Kyle Schassburger and David Kahn with you at Kyle Schass at SportsCon4. If you're watching, if you can see us, certainly you will at some point in your life, the stash is back.
Yes.
Schass Daddy is back. It's been way too long. I'm also rocking a powder purple for ECU. Many thanks to Scott Rogers, Scooter, the voice of ECU baseball, for sending me this in the mail last week. And I'm just going to come right out of the gate. You know, it was one of the more least consequential series over the weekends, but a 4-0 week for ECU and the Pirates. They have won 10-12 since winning in Raleigh. They've got a rematch with NC State in Greenville here tonight as we record to you on Tuesday, April 23rd. Just 4 conference weekends remain. We'll have the Power 10 coming up, Dudes, Hat Tips, and STA. But ECU, Con, I said in our preseason projections, I would not pick the Pirates to go to Omaha, but based on the rate that they are playing, I'm going for the reverse jinx, but I'm going to also change course here today and publicly say this team, for the first time in program history, will get to Omaha. They're playing that well. 39 games start, their best since 2004. ECU, they're number 7 in my Power 10, 31-8, 11-4 off a sweep of Wichita State this past weekend.
If you remember, if we go all the way back to our crazy 8 for Omaha back in our December podcast, I had ECU in my crazy 8. So I'm sticking with the Pirates as well. They are also into my Power 10 for this week. They're at number 8 for me after sweeping Wichita State over the weekend. They're 31-8, the only team in the American with more than 30 wins. Love what I'm seeing from ECU every year. I mean, they just continue to dominate the American Athletic Conference, and this is as good a chance as any for them to go ahead and they have a bona fide ace in Trey Savage. Obviously, the man who might be the filthiest pitcher in all of baseball, and Wyatt Lunsford-Shankman. If you haven't seen him pitch, there's a video over the weekend that Shass and I both sent to each other that we will retweet, and it is just disgusting. He's unhittable if he throws that every time, and I love what I'm seeing out of the Pirates. Yeah, let's get ECU to Omaha, and then let's get us to Omaha too.
Let's get us to Omaha, absolutely. ECU and NC State, part of the lineup card. We'll unveil that for the midweek. 1 of 2 pods coming up again this week. You can catch Con and I 2 times per week through the end of the college baseball season, maybe a third time too as we get into the postseason. We'll see. We'll see how the recording schedule breaks out. Again, follow us at CS Now Tweets as well for the show. Before we get to the Power 10, just kind of outlining what it was that happened this previous weekend. There were some pretty consequential series this past weekend on the diamond at both the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12. Oklahoma has his stranglehold now in the Big 12 at this moment in time, and Oregon State is continuing to plummet, play some poor baseball. Although tight, you know, they're not getting demolished, but they just got swept at Cal. Cal recording their first top 5 series win since 2016. The Golden Bears sending the Oregon State Beavers to their 5th loss in their past 6 games, although most of them have been close. So, you know, there's chaos all around us, but there are still some constants, and that's Texas A&M taking care of business at Alabama, taking 2 of 3. The Crimson Tide couldn't rekindle the magic from the previous week when the nation's number 1 team in Arkansas was in T-Town. Texas A&M went to Tuscaloosa and was able to sweep a doubleheader in convincing fashion. 28-14, Alabama took Game 3, and then Arkansas winning a rubber match at South Carolina. Still haven't lost a series to South Carolina and the Gamecocks in ages. That was in Columbia, but a shakeup. And I think this is where I want to start because Kentucky came in as the 3rd-ranked team overall last week. I don't want to penalize them too much for taking on Tennessee, the 4th-rated Vols, but Tennessee goes to Lexington, loses Game 1. They blow a lead late. Kentucky had a 3-run 7th inning, came back to win 5-3, but it was all volunteers the rest of the way. I think Tennessee, they didn't need to announce their arrival, Con, but I think them flexing their muscles, winning a 5th straight SEC series. Christian Moore with 3 home runs in the finale at 4 on the weekend. He's got 19 dongs, and 13 of those dingers have come in SEC play. He might be overlooked when we look at Jack Caglione and Charlie Condon inside the SEC.
Yeah, he certainly might be, and he is probably going to be the SEC Player of the Week this week if it hasn't already been announced already. Here's the thing. Yeah, Tennessee did need to announce to the world that it's here because that they've been here since at least 2021. And then, of course, they had that magical season in 2022 that came up just short of going to Omaha when Notre Dame ousted them in the Super Regionals. But the Tennessee-Kentucky series was the biggest one of the weekend. it lived up to the billing. There was like a super regional type atmosphere at Kentucky Proud Park. There was sellout crowds all weekend long in Kentucky and Lexington. And Tennessee just managed to get the better of the Wildcats as they retaliated with a 9-4 win Saturday. They had 5 runs before Kentucky posted an out. So, yeah, I don't think Tennessee needed to announce anything. We all knew this was going to be an incredible series, and Tennessee, manages to get the better of the Wildcats. But these are 2 teams that I think will both be top 8 national seeds when the dust settles 4 weekends from now, or actually 5 weekends from now after conference play, I should say. But yeah, a phenomenal series. I don't think it's the series that had the biggest impact of the major series that we're going to talk about, but it certainly was the highest level series, I think, that we saw this weekend of the ones that we were promoting going into this past weekend.
Speaking of the attendance, it was more than 6,900 people at Kentucky Proud Park in Game 1, which set a record. And then they exceeded that in Game 2, went over 7,000 against the Volunteers. And that was the first of 2 that Tennessee was able to take as they took the final 2 games in the series. We do get time, Kahn, just to add a teaser. We do want to have what you tabbed as the Omaha draft with NFL Draft Week here before us coming up on Thursday. We'll record again ahead of the NFL Draft on Thursday and might have a little projection or MLB prospect whip around, look at some of the highest projected dudes that might go in that draft. You mentioned Trey Yesavage as one of those guys for ECU already. I'll give you more of his numbers because ECU is still in my Power 10. He's no Higgins Smith, but still he's almost
Nobody
there.
is.
But we'll have an Omaha draft for teams that have not won the College World Series. You and I will go back and forth. And some of these might surprise the casual listeners, of course, those that are subscribing to our content and are, certainly following, supporting 3D, Dugouts, Dumbbells, and Dingers, but some teams with a lot of appearances in Omaha, but have never come away with the hardware. And 2, those that have ascended to, high-level baseball, high major baseball, and may not have gone to Omaha as much as some of the blue-blooded type programs, but still have put themselves on the doorstep year after year, but still can't burst through. So we'll look at that before we get out of here today. But Kahn, you mentioned the biggest impact of the series this past weekend. You had Wake Forest over FSU, taking 2 out of 3. Florida State took the middle game. Those were all tight as well. FSU was handicapped, if you will. They were limited.
Yeah,
they were missing 2 starters, and Wake Forest was able to quote unquote exploit or take advantage. But I feel like Florida State Florida State played so well that if they had those 2 guys, and really 3 guys, it was Cam Leiter, it was Connor Whitaker, and Ben Barrett, who are combined 10-1 on the season. 2 of them are stalwarts in the rotation. FSU lost 2 one-run games. And the one that we were all anticipating, the pitching showdown between Jamie Arnold and Chase Burns, neither one of those guys got to the 6th inning. Arnold threw 100 pitches. Burns was lifted after throwing 93. Each gave up 3 runs. Chase Burns, he might be broken, Kahn, because that's back-to-back games now that he hasn't exceeded double-digit strikeouts. That's 8 strikeouts this past weekend, 8 strikeouts the previous weekend. He's still leading the nation in strikeouts, but that's 3 total performances this year where he hasn't eclipsed double-digit Ks, all 3 of them with 8 strikeouts. So that seems to be the magic number if he's not eclipsing 10+. But Wake Forest, big time. They continue to the train continues to gather momentum. That offense is certainly scary. Still worried about the pitching and the fact that a limited FSU team was able to keep it as close as they were. I had a lot of fun following and keeping up with NC State and UNC, though, especially the late game dramatics going on between the Wolfpack and Tar Heels out in Raleigh. We mentioned Cal over Oregon State. There was also LSU finally winning an SEC series in Como. And they didn't win the game that Luke Holman pitched either, which is certainly head-jerking. So for you, which was the most impactful series win this past weekend?
Yeah, so there's 2 answers here. And I think, first off, we have to give credit where credit is due to LSU, right? Because they hadn't won an SEC series all year. And we had mentioned a couple weeks ago that if LSU doesn't go to Como and win the series over Missouri, and this was after Missouri swept Florida, that LSU season is done. Like we said, that was the decider. Because right now, they're still currently not in the Hoover picture. If the season ended today, LSU and Auburn would not make the SEC tournament in Hoover, Alabama, with 4 weekends to play. But we mentioned, if LSU can't go on the road and win that series against Missouri, a team who's kind of been the doormat of the SEC, in recent memory, that's it. That's going to just plummet their season to the end. Well, guess what? They did it. They run ruled them in game 1, and they ended up winning the rubber match in the finale. So good on them. I think that was not the biggest impact series on the weekend, though. I'm going to give that one to NC State over UNC. And the reason is the ACC might be the most confusing conference in the nation right now of the major conferences that we follow in college baseball. I mean, we've been promoting so many different teams in the ACC. With Virginia Tech, they've fallen off. Wake Forest has risen from the dead. Like, everybody's just kind of going back and forth and beating each other up. It's kind of like the Pac-12 normally does. But I think that NC State's series win over UNC is the biggest impact series of the weekend for a couple of reasons. One, the 2 wins they get over UNC, 1-run victories for the Wolfpack. Number 2, pitching has been a supreme issue for NC State. When you take a look at their stats, only one guy on the entire staff has an ERA of under 4.5, and that's their best reliever, Shane Van Dam, who's got a 2.9 ERA in 12 appearances over 31 innings. But NC State still continues to find ways to win series despite their struggles on the mound. They've won 4 of their last 5 ACC series, and they close with 2 more series on the road at FSU and at Virginia, and then versus Wake Forest. So I think NC State needs all the momentum they can going into the postseason as they try and battle and jockey for position in the ACC. They're currently 3rd in the Atlantic at 12-9 in ACC play and 22-15 overall. So I think just getting that win over your rival, high-charged atmosphere, that's the type of series you're going to need to be able to win, and the experience you're going to need to be able to draw on if you're NC State when you're going into the postseason to have to win games with a team that, like I said, doesn't have the best pitching right now. Nobody's really pitching well for the Wolfpack outside of Van Dam, but they still managed to find ways to win. They managed to find ways to come back with that 4-run comeback on Friday. And to have guys in the clutch like Brandon Butterworth certainly doesn't hurt too if you're NC State.
So for NC State, just the thrilling fashion in which they won too captivated me. In game 1, this was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night series. In game 1, you sent me the clip too. Mike Monaco just all over it. Just a beautiful call in walk-off fashion, the home run for NC State as they came back, won that in their final at-bat. And then having to come from behind the bottom of the 7th inning in game 2, they were down 4-1. Played at 1, scored 3 in the 8th, were able to close the door on the Tar Heels to take the series and win game 2. They had a chance to sweep. Carolina had their number in game 3, and good on Carolina to at least steady the ship, because they're a team that has kind of quietly been building a pretty substantial postseason resume to this point. And when you look at the league, you outlined some of the topsy-turvy nature as these clubs just continue to beat themselves up in the ACC. North Carolina still leading the Coastal at 15-6, 30-10 overall. Remember, they had that lengthy home winning streak extending back to last year that they saw come to a close against Coastal in the midweek of last week. But still, at home, this team has only lost 1 game. I mean, they've been pretty steady and are flirting with national seed type status. But for NC State to go out, protect their home turf, do what they've done. They're behind Clemson and FSU in the ACC Atlantic at 12-9, 22-15 overall. NC State's just hanging around, and that's back-to-back top 15 series wins at Clemson last week, now at home against North Carolina. This is a team that loves to say, woe is me, or at least their fan base does, like, hey, everyone's out to get us. We're going to do NC State things. Well, this could be the year of the Wolfpack, in all honesty. Think about what the women's basketball team did. Think about what the men's basketball team did. And now you get the baseball team, who's just a couple of years removed from that unlikely run to Omaha and dethroning Arkansas, which, the Hogs probably had their best chance ever in their program's history. Here's a little teaser, a little nugget, to win a College World Series. And Kevin Kopps and company went down in Fayetteville. And, because of COVID, go do the research, go do the history. We don't have to detail the whole thing. They weren't even able to finish a game or compete in a game in the College World Series, as they were eliminated because of COVID protocols, and the Vanderbilt ended up losing Mississippi State. But, the story of Elliott Avent, one of the winningest coaches of all time, and battling injuries and overcoming all of the adversity. I mean, they've had problems, finding consistency in their rotation, dealing with injuries between guys like Sam Highfill and I think it was Logan Whitaker, who's been in and out of the rotation as well.
Dominic Fritton.
Dominic Fritton. These guys have been hurt. They've been banged up. Highfill has dealt with shoulder soreness as well, and gone further than 3 in the 3rd inning his last 2 starts out. So, and Whitaker has been battling an illness, off the field since the end of March. So these guys are coming through in the biggest moments. I don't know if it's going to happen tonight in Greenville in front of a sold-out crowd and what is, I think, the midweek game of the week for me with NC State at ECU, and it's certainly a bragging rights game. You got a guy like Alex Markevich, who transferred from ECU as well, going back to Greenville. So, I mean, it's a juicy midweek contest. But, both of those teams have bigger goals, right, than a midweek win. But it'll certainly be a good one at Clark LeClaire tonight.
It will be, and it's kind of one of those ones where you'll look back, and whoever wins that game will certainly benefit from it when you take a look at things like RPI and the DSR, which I was actually kind of monitoring what the DSR field of 64 would look like coming into this week versus the RPI, and it's starting to get a little interesting. Like there's not a ton of difference right now, but there's enough where you can kind of see the differentiation between a program and a rating like the DSR that does fluctuate a little bit more based on how the teams are currently looking versus the RPI, which is, it's that one moment. That's it. It doesn't alter. Because like you look at certain teams like Wake Forest, who when they were struggling, it was because they were banged up. Nick Kurtz wasn't playing very well, and they were still missing some relievers. Now they've gotten some of their guys back. Now they're starting to get healthy. You talk about the fact that FSU hung right with Wake Forest, and you're still worried about the pitching. Well, Josh Hartle continues to look better, and yes, Chase Burns didn't strike out double-digit guys, but he still did what he needed to do to get them to win that game, and their bullpen's been able to come in and just keep them within striking distance while this lethal offense, which Wake Forest, I think, hit 6 home runs over the weekend in the series against FSU. This offense has awoken. Jack Winay, Seaver King, Jake Reinish, Cameron Gill finally hit his first home run as a Demon Deacon over the weekend. So Wake Forest, even though we build them as having the best pitching staff in the country over the in the preseason, they may not need it. Their offense has found their rhythm, and if they can continue to carry themselves, they might be as dangerous as we ever thought they could be come the postseason. But I mean, they're back in the top 8 seed conversation for sure.
Nick Kurtz is broken as well, by the way. He did not homer over the weekend against Florida State.
I saw that. Yeah.
Wake Forest with 77 bombs as a team. That's 12 nationally behind Tennessee, who's got 111. I like the NC State UNC series. I think that was among the most impactful. LSU needed it. They were desperate. They got it. Certainly, they're keeping the smallest sliver of hopes alive to be able to, make some sort of a run here. I mean, you got to get to Hoover, but you also got to win.
Get to Hoover.
You got to win a couple of games, and you've got to win a 4 remaining series. I mean, I think you got to win at least 2 of those. Ideally, you win 3 of them. Of course, if you're Jay Johnson, you want to win all of them. But, what is realistic at this point for a squad like LSU? And you and I, we lined up the Florida and LSU, resumes and what remains on last week's midweek pod. So, and speaking of the Gators, they go to Nashville. They drop 2 out of 3 to Vanderbilt. Vandy had a chance to sweep. And I don't know if you want to use this as a pivot point to Jack Caglione, but come on, Cags. 9 straight games with a home run. You couldn't get to 10. Tim Corbin pitching around you maybe, certainly in his last at-bat. You already had your starting pitcher ejected for rosin and sunscreen or whatever, some foreign substance. You figured, okay, well, the fans, Florida, they've had their fun. We're not going to allow Jack Caglione to set an NCAA record in Game 3.
I mean, Tim Corbin was pretty blunt about it in his pregame press conference. They said, how do you pitch to Jack Caglione? He said, you don't. That's correct. But yeah, I mean, he tied the NCAA record for most games in a row with a home run with 9. It's more than anybody's ever done at the major league level. So good on Cags for that. I wish he would have gotten the record. That would have been cool.
You know who has the major league record, right?
I did. It's not in my brain right now, but I did.
God,
I saw it.
My favorite athlete of all time.
Yeah.
Ken Griffey Jr.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's
games.
right.
8 straight games.
I saw it. I saw it over the weekend. I just forgot. But yeah, I mean, look, I said this earlier today. I don't know if Florida's going to win another series. Their schedule is ridiculous, right? I think isn't it Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Georgia to close the year? I'm pretty sure that's the 4 they have remaining. If I'm wrong, sorry, but I think that's it. And that's really hard. I mean, Arkansas is, number 1, number 2 in the country, depending on, who you are and where you are located. Kentucky and Tennessee, we just mentioned, we think are 2 top 8 national seeds. And Georgia's quietly been a very solid team in the SEC. They're in consideration for my Power 10 this week. They didn't quite make it in, but they're certainly hunting and looking for a spot if one of these teams that are currently in the 10 drop out due to a rough series like we had a few rough series for people in my Power 10, like West Virginia and Oklahoma State, both tumbled out of the top 10 for me.
We'll get to the Power 10 here in a moment. But for Florida, just to recap, one half of last year's national championship series, LSU being the other. So let's give you a temperature check on each again. At Arkansas, at home to Tennessee, at home against Kentucky, and then at Georgia for Florida. LSU, meanwhile, their final 4 regular season weekends in the SEC will conclude with Auburn at home, Texas A&M at home, Alabama, and Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Alabama is the only one on the road. So they've got 3 of their next 4 at home.
I mean, do this right now. So we mentioned the fact that right now, if the season ended today, LSU and Auburn would not make Hoover. I think LSU gets in because of the fact that 3 of their final 4 series are at home. They've got that winning momentum now with Missouri. And Florida's got such a tougher schedule. I'm not saying Florida's going to miss because I don't know if I want to go that far yet. They're still a very good team. They've just been really struggling of late, and they have a gauntlet of a schedule. Who is the other team? Because right now I think Auburn, it's going to be tough for them to make Hoover. So I think Auburn's kind of on the outside looking in. Who's the second team if it's not LSU? Is it Ole Miss?
Missouri.
Is it Alabama? Is it Missouri?
It's Missouri, and I hate to say that because they've given us some great moments at this point. They play so hard. We've talked about it over the last couple of weeks. But at 6-12, 18-23 overall, what is Mizzou's path here to get to Hoover? Because right now LSU at 5-13, sure they're a game back of Mizzou in the standings, but they just took 2 out of 3 in Como. Yeah, they've got the tiebreaker. So Missouri is going to conclude with at Tennessee this weekend. Then they have South Carolina at home. Auburn, it's as much of a coin flip as you can get. So that Auburn series, who LSU also has this weekend, and then you're at Mississippi State. So, I mean, they might get swept by they're getting swept by either Tennessee or South Carolina, if not both. I think there's a sweep in there. So with, let's see, what is that? 12 remaining games. I mean, if they can win 4 of those 12, at least one game, and not get swept, is that going to be enough to overcome LSU in the schedule that we just, outlined? I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. So here's the thing. I think it's going to come down to that final series of the weekend between LSU and Ole Miss to determine it. I think it's going to be. I think that I don't know that Ole Miss, like it could be if LSU wins that series, that puts Missouri out, or it puts Ole Miss out. But if Ole Miss wins that series, I think that does LSU in. That the final series of the regular season in Baton Rouge. That's my thoughts on everything.
That's fair. And still, the Missouri-Auburn series, like Mizzou can play Auburn and take 2 out of 3. They can win that.
Yeah.
They can win that series.
I think Missouri's series outside of the South Carolina one is winnable. Like Mississippi State, winnable. I mean, they're playing better than they have in recent memory, but
we get Tennessee this weekend.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant. I meant the Tennessee one. That's a tough one.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You want to go to our Power 10? Kind of touch on
let's laud a little bit on Texas A&M before we get to the Power 10. I mean that's a good segue into our Power 10 because they're the number 1 team in the country for both of us. They are number 1 in my Power 10 this week. They were number 1 in your Power 10 last week. And I think the reason, and I said this, A&M, you go to Alabama, you win the series, you're number 1. They did it. And they destroyed the ball offensively. 37 runs in 3 games. Rallied from a 5-0 deficit in game 1 of a doubleheader on Friday, 18-9 in game 2. They had 8 homers in the doubleheader. And I mean, the offensive surge from Texas A&M is insane. I think they've had 9 or more runs in 7 consecutive games. If you're for Texas A&M, so that's really impressive. And the only thing that kind of worries me is Justin Lampkin continues to struggle for the Aggies. He's allowed 18 runs in his last 4 starts over just 10 innings. So A&M possibly with a little bit of a chink in the pitching armor that we've kind of praised all season under new pitching coach Max Weiner. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But A&M's offense is unable to be ignored right now, how good they've been with swinging the bat. So they have to be the number 1 team in the country, and just want to give them a little bit of a tip of the cap because I still said they were below Arkansas, and to me, they've jumped them now.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to bring attention to. Let's not just lazily gloss past your stance from a week ago when you said Arkansas was number one. So now they have proven to you, and you're right.
Yes.
You said at the time you go to Tuscaloosa, you win the series. So we're there. We're there.
Yep,
Texas
we're
A&M, Aggies, juggernaut right now.
Yeah.
I mean, number one, undisputed, undefeated. Not undefeated. There's still a game back of Arkansas in the SEC West standings, too. Remember, they play each other to conclude the regular season. The bad part about that is it's not going to probably have the juice because you're just before Hoover, and both teams are going to be national, seeds at that point.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably going to be 1 and 2. They're probably going to be 1 and 2. So both the team, Schloss and Dave Van Horn are going to strategically play that series. Absolutely.
Sure.
But I mean, look, you talk about A&M. It's how we open the podcast, right? Special team, special plays, special players. That's Texas A&M.
What's up, bro? It's Tuesday. Texas A&M 73 rounds over their last 6 SEC games. Again, 37 this past weekend, 28-14 over those first 2 games, 5 straight series wins, 35-5, 13-5 in the SEC. And we hope to have some Aggies representation coming up maybe this week. So stay tuned for that on the back half of the week. We are efforting. We have boots on the ground in College Station. So they are my number 1 team as well. Not a surprise for Texas A&M. Arkansas at number 2. They picked up the 2 midweek wins over Texas Tech, which were also extraordinarily dramatic, keeping the Baum-Walker streak alive. That's now, I think it's 25 in a row at home for Arkansas, the most ever in Fayetteville at Baum-Walker Stadium. That's a program record. They've got a neutral site game in North Little Rock here in the midweek against Arkansas Pine Bluff, something that they do annually. And the 2-1 win, game 1 at South Carolina on Friday, they played a doubleheader. Weather just wreaked havoc this entire weekend across the ACC and the SEC. And, all the conference.
West Virginia played a doubleheader.
Big 12 also, they got washed out on Saturday and played 2 on Sunday late. And for Arkansas, a 2-1 win. Remember when I was at Auburn on the Plains, Hagen-Smith game 1 Thursday, 1-0 win. That might be, like, if I'm going to say there's going to be a 1-0 or a 2-1 win, a 1-run, nail-biting, pitching duel type game in the SEC, I'm confident more than anything it involves Hagen-Smith. And sure enough, it did on Friday night with Hagen going 6 innings. He struck out 11. That's now 100 strikeouts for him on the season in 52 2/3 innings. He is 8-0 on the season. Mm-hmm. Arkansas is 10-0 in games where Hagen-Smith pitches, and it was a 2-1 win on Friday. They lost game 2 of the series. The first game of the doubleheader came back to take the finale, but that 2-1 win was Arkansas's 15th win, Con, in games decided by 2 runs or less. I mean, they are winning. This isn't a team that's going to bludgeon you with runs like Texas A&M. That's not their brand of baseball this year. But by golly, when it comes to nut-cutting time and going to a specific arm or specialist out of the bullpen, I mean, Gabe Gackle and Hagen-Smith combined for 16 Ks on Friday night. Gackle, a freshman, the Gack man. I mean, he has been insane.
Gack attack.
The Gack attack. Mason Molina didn't have it in game 1 of the doubleheader. Tiger did. That was his best outing of the season. But the arms that Arkansas has to go to, my goodness, in 15 wins decided by 2 runs or less is as indicative of that as anything else. So Arkansas 34-6, 14-4 in the league. They've got Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi State, and A&M to close. They're at number 2. And I'll just finish out my top 5, and then you can refresh your list. Third in my Power 10, Tennessee, 5th straight SEC Series win. Talked about Christian Moore, what he did on the weekend, 4 more home runs, 19 for the season, 13 in SEC play. They have Mizzou this weekend at 33-7, 12-6. Tennessee blowing the lead in game 1, but really piling it on the road. Super convincing. I'm not going to dock Kentucky because it's a top 5 showdown. I mean, I'm not going to move them down, a couple of spots. I'm just going to move them down to number 4. So Kentucky, the fact that Dominic Neiman did not record an out in game 2 is very troubling. You're at home. This is a record-setting crowd, okay? And you can't even record an out. I mean, that is a miss. That is an over there. That certainly gives me some concern with the tenacity, the toughness. I'm not trying to question the toughness, but, like, come on, dude. Like, do a little bit better. Tennessee.
He had a bad day. He had a bad day.
Bad day. Tennessee punched him in the mouth. I didn't look back. 13-2 now. Kentucky in quad one games. They entered the weekend at 12-0, 13-0 after the game one win. Again, the record crowds was awesome. You said charged up environment, super regional type environment. For Kentucky, who played in the Super a year ago in Baton Rouge before falling to the eventual national champion LSU. The 3-run rally in the 7th was awesome. And then number 5, I've got Duke to win some wacky games over the weekend at Virginia Tech in their first series win in Blacksburg in a handful of years, 29-11, 13-8, 4th straight ACC series win. I've got them ahead of Clemson because Clemson lost against NC State last week. Again, they got things back going in the right direction, taking 2 out of 3 from Pitt. They're number 6. But for Duke, you win 9-8 in 11 innings, Con, in Blacksburg. You play another 11 innings the following day. You lose 2-1. 2 one-run games. You split the first 2, and then you come back and you're down 9-4 in the top of the 7th inning. Virginia Tech just ready to claim the series, and Duke comes all the way back, takes their first lead in the 9th off the bat of A.J. Garcia, just a freshman animal for the Blue Devils. 2-homer game in Game 3, and the second broke the tie, gave Duke their first lead since the 3rd inning. He's one off the freshman record at Duke for home runs in a single freshman season. He's got 11 now for the year. He's also 1 RBI shy of the RBI record set by freshman Joey Luperfido at the time with 43. So A.J. Garcia with 42 ribbies, and Duke claims the series, taking 2 out of 3 on the road at VTech.
All right. Well, you and I mostly agree on our top 5 in our Power 10. A&M, as we mentioned, clearly the number 1 team in the country, which, by the way, I have news on Thursday's podcast. We are going to be speaking with Gavin Grahovac on Thursday.
Potential freshman of the year in the SEC.
Confirmed. Kyle Stafford, the SID for Texas A&M baseball, has replied, and he said, I have confirmed Gavin Grahovac for Thursday at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. So we will have Gavin Grahovac for you for our Thursday podcast. Just wanted to put that out there. He's one of the major boppers on this Texas A&M team. Of course, you got Braden Montgomery, 22 dingers. He's 3rd in the NCAA. Jace Lavalette, 20 homers, tied for 5th. But we're going to be speaking with Gavin Grahovac. So really excited about that. I just wanted to loop that news in there as part of my top 5 of my Power 10. Arkansas moves down to number 2. You mentioned Hagen Smith getting to 100 strikeouts and 52 2/3 innings. That's actually faster than any MLB pitcher has done that going back to 1893. So that just kind of puts that in perspective, how good Hagen Smith has been this year. Number 3, Tennessee, continuing to lead the country in homers and runs scored at 415. They're actually tied with Wofford, but whatever. Number 4, Kentucky remains at number 4 for me. And then number 5, I put the Demon Deacons up to number 5 after their win over FSU. I know there's some question marks about their pitching, but it's a gritty, huge ranked series win for a team that has really started to pick up momentum and is feasting. And they have what should be a sweep in South Bend this weekend against a very, very rough Notre Dame team right now. Wake Forest needs to go to South Bend and sweep the Irish. They need to do that. They're in prime position to do so. And if they lose that series, good golly, that's awful. But they need to go sweep Notre Dame.
Hold on. Are you disparaging the Golden Domers right now, fresh off a sweep of Boston College and their first combined or no-hitter of any kind since 1988 this past weekend? Come on, my guy. Hat tip to the Golden Domers, by the way. That is my hat tip. Notre Dame getting their first no-hitter since the year I was born. It was a combined no-no.
But, Notre Dame
in 7 innings, I know, whatever.
Notre Dame is 5-16 in the ACC. They've been bad. You have to admit that.
I don't care. I don't care.
Okay. Well, Wake Forest needs to go win that series. All right, they need to.
No, it is a series certainly you cannot drop. I'm with you.
They're Wake Forest number 5. You want me to roll through 6 through 10 for me
go ahead,
right now?
Yep.
All right. So I kept Clemson at number 6 because they beat Pitt, which is nothing really to write home about. Pitt's also 5-16 in the ACC, but they took 2 out of 3. I'm not going to hurt them for that. So they stay at 6. Number 7, I bopped Vandy up 1. Good rebound after getting swept by A&M last weekend. They take 2 or 3 from Florida. Bryce Cunningham and Carter Holton continue to be excellent. You mentioned what happened with J.D. Thompson. He was only starting because Devin Futrell was not on the 27-man roster before the series. Kevin O'Sullivan for Florida was like, who's starting Game 3? We have no idea. So they start J.D. Thompson, who, correct me if I'm wrong,
That was his first
start?
SEC. That was his first SEC start.
Yes, this year. But didn't he start the SEC championship game last year against A&M?
Ooh, it's a deep cut, man.
I'm pretty sure he did. I think that's right. I think J.D. Thompson started the SEC title game last year in Hoover against A&M. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's correct. But yeah, let me know if I'm wrong there. Anyways, what happened with J.D. Thompson, for those of you who were living under a rock and weren't watching the series over the weekend, he was actually ejected in the top of the fourth because the Florida dugout pointed to what looked like a discoloration on his arm and accused him of using a foreign substance. Vandy argued, no, that's just rosin and sunscreen mixed together. I mean, understandable. It's hot in Nashville. He's touching the rosin bag. He's rubbing his arm. But the umpires tossed him. And they said, look, we can't confirm that it's not a foreign substance. So see ya. You're gone. And he's actually suspended now for 4 games, which means he cannot pitch in Vandy's upcoming series against Mississippi State. And what's even odder is Tim Corbin brings in Ethan McIlvain, a freshman, and Ethan McIlvain injures his lower back while warming up. So he never threw a pitch. So he's out too. So wacky, part of the finale, but Vandy already took the series, but just wanted to bring that story to light and give you all the details that we had. It seems like it was just, the umpires had to do their job. No way to confirm that it was just rosin and sunscreen. And that's what happened. Unfortunate for J.D. Thompson there, but Vandy still wins the series.
Thompson did not start the championship game in Hoover. He started the game against Florida, which was at the semi, May 27th.
Yeah.
I don't know which one.
That was the semi. That was the semi. Okay. That was the semi. I knew it was over the weekend. Anyways, rest of my Power 10. ECU, number 8 for me in the Power 10. We talked about them sweeping Wichita State over the weekend. They've won 4 straight series in the American. Duke is number 9 for me after their first series win in Blacksburg since 2018. They've also won 4 straight ACC series. Charlie Bielenson continues to just absolutely wreak havoc at the back end of that bullpen. 4 scoreless in that win in the opener back on Friday. And then Oklahoma goes back into the top 10 or the Power 10 for me after sweeping BYU in Provo, outscoring them 32-21. The Sooners have now won 7 in a row since dropping 3 straight to West Virginia, Lamar, and Oklahoma State. 3 straight series, I should mention. And out of the Power 10 for me, West Virginia, who got swept at Texas Tech, who now has the most wins of any Big 12 team at 29. Oklahoma State lost 2 of 3 on the road at K-State. And FSU, as we mentioned, they were very banged up this weekend, but you're banged up. You're not one of the 10 best teams in the country because you're banged up. You don't have your best guys. So they're out of the Power 10.
Come on, man. That's not the same criteria the selection committee uses.
We are the selection committee, so we get to decide what our own damn criteria is, all right?
All right. I mentioned Clemson is my 6th team in my Power 10. At number 7, I've got ECU. So they move up. I think I had them at 8 last week. The 7, does that match the top 25 this week? I believe it does. ECU is either at 7 or 8. Okay.
Yes, they're 7.
Trey Yesavage.
Wake Forest is 8.
Yesavage for the year. Let me give you his numbers for the year, and then I'll tell you what he did in game 1. He's 8-1, 1.92 ERA, 61 innings pitched. He is the 15 strikeouts was a career high. 14 was a career high. He did one better at 15. He did run out of gas a little bit late in game 1 against Wichita State, give up 3 runs, but still ECU was in control. In what was a wild, perfect week for ECU at 4-0. But the midweek game was 14-13 over William and Mary, where I believe there were a combined 42 guys left on base in that game. It was insane early in the week. So ECU's behind Clemson, 11 unanswered runs. They needed 2 to sweep Wichita State in the finale. How about this out of the 7 and 8 spot in the order, Con, for ECU in game 3? Cam Clonch and Joey Barini, 7 for 9 combined, 2 RBIs, and 2 home runs and 5 RBIs, but 7 for 9 combined in that game 3 out of the 7 and 8 hole. So ECU's getting contributions up and down the lineup. It's not just Justin Wilcoxon or Riley Johnson or Jacob Jenkins Coward. These guys are stacked top to bottom, but Carter Cunningham, too, as well, has hit safely in 13 of 14 games. Eighth team is Wake Forest, 465 Ks, leads the ACC, second nationally, 26-13, 11-10. You spotlighted them well. Here's the thing, Con. They're leading the league in strikeouts and second nationally, but they're also leading the country in walks drawn. I mean, the patience for this squad, 249, 11 more than any other team. They drew 16 free passes against Florida State this past weekend. I do have FSU still in at number 9. I'm sorry, it gets a little wishy-washy at the bottom of the bottom 10. Between 8, 9, 10, 11, it could be any collection of teams. FSU at 31-8, 11-7. They come back to the Carolinas this weekend. They've got Duke. They'll be playing at Jack Coombs Field. And then Oregon State at number 10. I contemplated dropping them entirely, but then who do I put there? North Carolina off a series defeat? Do I move somebody like UCI all the way up, who had another winning week out of the Big West? Or Oklahoma, as you settled with, somebody out of the Big 12 at number 10. But Oregon State, a 1-4 week. Cal earns the sweep. They're 30-9, 10-7. They've lost 5 of 6, but 4 one-run games. That's the thing that I'm really hanging on to, is how close these games have been. Another loss was by 2 runs, so that's 5 of 6 games lost, all by a total of 6 runs. So Clemson, ECU, Wake Forest, Florida State, and Oregon State, that will round out my Power 10. Anything to add?
No, I agree with you that the bottom of the Power 10 gets a little wishy-washy. I struggled with figuring out exactly who I was going to put in. I ended up putting in 3 new teams this week in ECU, Duke, and Oklahoma. Number 10 was tough because I was also considering teams like UC Irvine, Georgia, and even NC State, because we talked about how good NC State was over the weekend against North Carolina. We talked about Georgia continuing to just hang around, and UC Irvine's number 12 in the country. So it's difficult to firmly say these are the 10 best teams in the country. But I think we had some different different ideas, and I'm glad we spotlighted all of these teams because they certainly deserve to be highlighted.
Give me your hat tip, because I've already given mine.
You have. I have a couple. So first off, quick hat tip to Mike Bianco, the head coach of the Ole Miss Rebels. He won his 1,000th career game as a head coach on Saturday, 900th as a Rebel. So congrats to him on that. My second hat tip is to the Portal Games that's coming up this June in 2024. I don't know if you saw this, Shass, but there's actually going to be
Portal Games?
Yes, there's a transfer portal event that is happening for college baseball players that are either in the portal or who want to or intending to enter the portal. It's at Grand Park Sports Campus in Westfield, Indiana on June 25th for any player in the portal or who intends to enter the portal. It's a one-day workout, pro-style workout, followed by 2 games. College coaches will be there, players will be there, scouts will be there, and it's for anybody who wants to audition to be on a new team. So I think it's a great opportunity. We're having a showcase for this type of event. D1 Baseball is going to cover it as well. So I just wanted to shout that out. If you want to know more about it, portalgamesbaseball.com to check that out.
That's pretty cool. That's north of Indianapolis.
Yes.
Mike Bianco getting win number 1,900 at Ole Miss, right? Ole Miss is playing right now. So because we're recording a podcast, we might as well give a live update as they take on North Alabama. It's Kids Day in Oxford, Education Day. Bottom of the third, no score as we pod just before 1 o'clock Eastern time. This is an 11 o'clock Central start, a tradition unlike any other in Oxford at Swayze Field. Ole Miss and North Alabama tied at 0. The Rebs have yet to get hit off North Alabama. So, number 1 strength and schedule I saw when I pulled up Ole Miss's player page. Andrew Fisher, the former Duke a freshman stud a year ago, decided to transfer, go to Ole Miss. How about this for Fish? Now, Ole Miss only took 1 game out of the 3 against Georgia this past weekend. Charlie Condon had 2 more homers. He's now 2 shy of Gordon Beckham for the Georgia career lead. We'll see if he gets that here this week. I would assume he does. He might get one against Clemson tonight.
I think he will.
I think he will. I'll look at the lineup card in a moment, as Georgia has been nearly unbeatable at home. They welcome Clemson to Foley Field. They're 24-3 is Georgia in Athens. They're scoring better than 9.5 runs per game. But Andrew Fisher for Ole Miss in game 2 of the series this year. Game 2, 359 hitter, 10 home runs, 17 RBIs, 7 runs. He's got 10 home runs in the second game of the series. That wasn't the game they won. They were able to steal the finale and avoid the sweep. So Ole Miss, Mike Bianco, looking for win number 901, leading the Rebels here against North Alabama today on a Tuesday. My dude is going to be my daughter. Punch is 8 for her last 8. We got 2 more softball games on
Back-to-back
deck.
dudes.
Here's tonight, another dudette selection for my 8-year-old who is leading her 8U team to a phenomenal start. Not necessarily in the wins and loss column. However, they did win. They did win 16-0 on Friday night, so they were overpowering for their, I believe, second win in 6 games this year. So I think they're 2-4. But Pudge is 8 for her last 8. She's got 3 bombs now. Again, these are Little League home runs, but 2 of them are legit, where she's able to race around the bases because she just blasted through everyone in the outfield, and they're giving chase on all that green real estate out towards the fence. And, it's awesome, man. So we'll see what she's got in store for us tonight. First home game, home opener for Wahlberg tonight at 6 o'clock. Then she's on the road again in Lexington tomorrow.
Oh, love it. All right. Well, listen, I need to come watch the Superstar.
6 o'clock tonight, man. Wahlberg.
I got kickball.
Screw kickball. You don't want to be there.
I gotta show up for my team. I wasn't there last week.
It got rained out, I
thought. 2 weeks ago it did.
Oh, whatever.
Anyways, my dude, we're going to Austin P for my dude of the week. Lyle Miller Green is my dude of the week. He had quite the day in the finale at Florida Gulf Coast. On Sunday, he became just the 3rd Governors hitter ever to go 6 for 6 in a game, and the 2nd ever with 20 homers in a season. So Lyle Miller Green is my dude of the week. Shass, go ahead and look him up. He has a fine mustache.
He does.
Just like yourself. This is his 2nd year with Austin P after transferring from Oklahoma State. He led the team last year in average homers and RBIs. Currently is hitting .380. That's 1 point less than the team leader in average, but leads the team with 20 homers, 57 RBIs in 39 games. And Austin P, by the way,
he pitches.
They're in the mix for the Atlantic Sun right now. They're 23-16, 11-7 in conference play, tied for 4th, but only 1 game back of 3 teams in the Atlantic Sun that are all tied for 1st, led by Stetson and Kennesaw State.
So my guy is a Virgo. He's born September 4th. Do love the mustache. Got a little ginger to him as well. He's got some two-way aspect to him because I see a couple of photos where he's actually hurling the baseball. But this guy is out of Burke, Virginia, transfer from Oklahoma State. Looks like he could be working private security, running private unit for maybe Zach Ryan or Morgan Wallen or even Jelly Roll.
Morgan Wallen needs a lot of security right now.
Morgan Wallen needs a 6'5", 237-pound Lyle Miller Green. So, good on him. Certainly worthy of dude honors in his 6 for 6 day. A monster. Oh, he's majoring in leadership. Did not even know that was a major. Wow. I love that. I envy this man. LMG. Good stash. Certainly can whoop some ass. Lyle Miller Green. Okay. SDA. Isaiah Jackson from Arizona State with the ultimate home run rob of the weekend. I don't even remember who they were playing. Were they playing UCLA?
Put it in the Louvre.
UCLA is the worst team in the Pac-12, by the way. Did you see that?
They are.
They're at the bottom.
They're
at the bottom of the standings. I think the Sun Devils were playing the Bruins. I might be wrong.
They were.
I don't care.
It was in Los Angeles. They were playing UCLA, and oh my gosh. Literally put it in the Louvre. It was an incredible catch.
It was like a Gary Matthews Jr. type grab from Major League Baseball, 15 years ago or something, maybe even longer, 20. Right. I feel like it was a kid. I mean, he climbed the wall, pulled himself up, the dramatic effect. I mean, he needed every bit of extension, but just the range that this dude had to locate and finish the catch, it was unbelievable. So that is my social display of affection. One more for you, Gary Sheffield, seen recently this past week, dropping bombs in a private BP session while smoking the fattest stogie in his mouth while dropping bombs. I'll have to share that with you on IG. I don't know, it might be old, might be dated, but somehow it made its way into my DMs, and I appreciate who slid the cigar-smoking Gary Sheffield into my DMs here over the last few days. It was incredible.
I hope it was over the weekend because that'd be really cool if Gary Sheffield could still muscle him out of there. That'd be pretty impressive. My SDA is to Donovan Burke of James Madison. Steven Schock at Big Donkey 47 posted this from JMU Baseball's video over the weekend. If you have not seen Donovan Burke's pickoff move, holy smokes. I mean, it is deception upon deception. They're playing Georgia Southern in this video. And Donovan Burke, it looks like he's going to the plate. I've watched this about 55 times, and I keep watching, and I go, how is that not a balk? But he does it perfectly. He leans just a slight bit forward, but it's angled at the exact appropriate 45-degree plane, and he gets over to first. You can see the Georgia Southern runner is completely fooled, and he picks him off. So well done to Donovan Burke, and I'm glad that this was circulated around the college baseball ether this past weekend because it's so impressive. And Donathan Burke gets my social display of affection for the week.
It looked like he was levitating. It was
Yeah.
It was miraculous. Okay, so we're going to save the Omaha draft for Thursday, which makes sense with the NFL draft beginning on Thursday. We'll talk a little prospects as well. Maybe go over Keith Law's list of who he's projecting in the first round. A lot of college studs all across those first 10, 15 picks or so, just littered with college athletes like Jack Caglione and Hagen Smith and Charlie Condon, of course, who's the presumptive number 1 overall pick at this time. Trey Yesavage is in the top 10 as well. So we'll outline some of those. We'll do our Omaha draft for teams that have not won the College World Series. Kahn and I will ping pong those back and forth, and we'll hear also from maybe the favorite to win SEC Freshman of the Year from Texas A&M. Looking forward to catching up with Gavin Grahovac, who will be joining us on the program on Thursday, the freshman Aggie stud, who has helped lead Texas A&M to the number 1 ranking nationally. Before we get out the door, Con, though, other midweek games maybe we haven't touched on. We got Clemson at Georgia. We've got NC State at ECU. What else is tickling your fancy here in the midweek here as we talk on April 23rd?
Yeah, give me 2 others. Give me the Duke Blue Devils at Campbell. We haven't talked about the fighting Camels a little bit, but the Dukies are headed to Bowie's Creek to face Campbell. That should be a fun one. And then also give me Coastal Carolina at Creighton. Big East, not a conference to be ignored right now, Kyle Schassburger. They are certainly doing some things, especially Creighton and Villanova. The Big East certainly creeping into the relevant conference picture here in 2024. So want to shout them out here at the end of the pod. And of course, Creighton, I've harped on the Blue Jays a couple of times after they beat Nebraska twice. So just as I continue to throw shade on the Huskers.
At Kyle Schass and SportsCon 4 will be back on Thursday. Dugouts, Dumbbells, and Dingers 3D Club will be going up on a Thursday. Bye.